Some of President Trump's top economic advisors discussing who may have helped craft the controversial formula for blanket tariffs. The formula's methodology cites a 2021 research paper focusing on tariffs and U.S. trade policy. But co-author of that paper, Brent Nyman, says the Trump administration got it all wrong. Brent Nyman joins me now. He is an economics professor at the University of Chicago and former counselor to Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. Brent, welcome. So first off, walk us through the formula and where the administration went wrong, because we can't know their thought process determining these rates. Does it seem to you like they cherry-picked through your research to validate their goals?
Well, first, thanks for having me, Alex. And let me step back just for 1 second before I get to the formula specifically, which is that the goal, as actually was just mentioned in one of the clips that you mentioned, the goal driving the formula and driving the policy was to eliminate bilateral trade imbalances, bilateral trade deficits. And the most important thing to realize is that is not the basis for a sound trade policy. There's nothing necessarily wrong at all with the fact that we import a lot of precious stones, let's say, from Zambia, and they don't happen to import a lot of high-tech equipment from us. Or even in the other direction, we happen to export more to Australia. They buy a lot of our trucks and farm equipment, and we don't buy that much of one of their main exports, which is beef. And there's nothing in those two patterns that suggests anything unfair is going on, or nothing in those patterns that suggests we're worse off. So the core problem initially was designing a policy to try to eliminate those imbalances. We should not try to do that. It'll make Americans much worse off. But then to get to your question, they use that logic to derive a formula. And I don't know entirely how they got the numbers that they plugged into the formula, but they cited work that I did with co-authors. And I believe that that work suggests that the number that they should have used would imply tariffs as low as 1/4 of the ones that they ultimately did calculate, and that President Trump ultimately did hold up on that sign on April 4th in the Rose Garden.
So do any of these formulas account for overall economic imbalances between countries?
So again, I think that the way that, you should do trade policy is pick a very specific, clear goal. Sorry, please.
No. I'm agreeing with you because I've read one thing you wrote: trade imbalances between two countries can emerge for many reasons that have nothing to do with protectionism.
Right. I mean, these were billed as reciprocal tariffs. So,
right.
Even earlier, I think it was the White House press spokesperson said something like these were going to be like golden rule tariffs, referring to the Bible's do unto other, as you would want them to do unto you passage. And the idea is, I thought they'd look at some countries abroad and they would say, look, their tariffs are 6%. The U.S. tariff is 3%. I'm making up numbers, and so we're going to put on a 3 percentage point tariff to bridge the gap. But if you look at what they did, again, they did some calculation that I think is based on a faulty premise. And the result actually is much, much broader and much, much larger tariffs. I think anything like that were to go into practice, it would be very damaging for American workers, households, and businesses. And I should note, I think one of the positive things from this discussion that's come out is that they announced a pause on some subset of these tariffs. And that's better than nothing. But I do want to emphasize that it's well short and much worse than simply scrapping these reciprocal tariffs, even the 10% component entirely. And one of the reasons why is that it causes a lot of uncertainty. And Alex, your viewers would be able to understand what uncertainty does. Imagine you wanted to go buy a house somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
What are the things that you're thinking about? You're thinking about the tax rate, the property taxes. You're thinking about, are the schools good? What kind of mortgage interest rate are you going to get? And if you don't know for 90 days whether the taxes are going to be 2% or 20%, and you don't know if the mortgage rate that you're going to be able to get is 4% or 12%, you're just going to do nothing. You're going to continue renting or staying wherever you are until you understand more about that uncertainty. And so I also really worry that the degree of uncertainty, all the changes and back and forth that's accompanied these trade policies are going to lead to real problems for our country.
Yeah. I just want to thank you, being a professor at the University of Chicago, for putting it in terms that we can all understand, because it is so complicated and for many people so worrisome, to the point you were just making. Brent Neiman, thank you so much. Appreciate your time.